everyone, my name is Mary Mays. I'm a meteorologist. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining in. Today we've got the threat of a severe weather outbreak and it's pretty serious. So I wanted to really get into the details of what's going to be happening because a lot of folks are going to be at risk today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But let's go ahead and get right into that forecast. So let's start out with a look at current advisories and warnings. A lot of red flag warnings stretching from Texas into Kansas. A lot of wind there. Don't light anything, basically, is what you need to know. Blizzard warnings in South Dakota and into Minnesota. The cold side of the system is going to be packing a punch as well, but our big concern is the severe weather threat because this is looking like a pretty big severe weather outbreak that's going to impact a lot of people, millions of people. Notice we also have plenty of wind advisories there in that tan shade in the Mississippi Valley up through the Ohio River Valley. It's going to be really windy even if you're not under a thunderstorm. So let's get into what you're probably here for, and that is the severe weather outlook. Notice there's a red here. That's a moderate risk, and this stretches from Iowa in through Illinois all the way down into Arkansas and northwest Mississippi. This is exactly a week after we just had an awful tornado outbreak in Mississippi. This is an even bigger area under the risk, and this includes some pretty big metro areas. This includes Little Rock, it includes Memphis, and it is going to be one of those things you have to be extremely cautious. You need to have a severe weather plan in place and think about your safety because we could see long track, strong tornadoes, especially in that red area. So that's the moderate risk. That's a level 4 out of 5. Big deal. You don't see these all that often. And then you also have an enhanced risk in Nashville, Bowling Green, Louisville, Indianapolis, Chicago. The main threat in these areas is this line kind of pushes to the east, I would say from Chicago down through Nashville. It's going to be more of a big hail and winds gusting upwards of 70 mile per hour threat, which can be incredibly damaging, lead to a lot of power outages. And, even straight line winds can lift your roof off your home. Something to keep in mind. And there's just a lot of folks under this severe weather outlook. Let's get a look at the tornado risk. And this is really interesting. So the red shading is a 15% chance you could see a tornado within 25 miles of your location in the red. And the yellow there is a 10% chance. Even on these days when we are looking at a severe weather outbreak, your chances of getting hit by a tornado, even on a day like this, still pretty slim. But if it does happen, it's a big deal for you and it can drastically alter your life. So being prepared is so important. Make sure you head into a safe area in your home. Basements and storm shelters are best, but not everybody has those. So an interior room, bathroom, closet, have a helmet, have your shoes ready to go. Be dressed, honestly. And just make sure you have warnings on your phone so you know when you need to seek shelter. NOAA weather radio, also a great thing to have, but not everybody has them. This hatched area and the black there, there's little, hatch marks. That indicates the possibility of strong tornadoes, EF2 or greater, and those are by far the most deadly. So this goes from Des Moines all the way down through Little Rock into Greenville, Mississippi, even into the northern edge of Louisiana, and this goes east into Nashville, which is where I live. And, a lot of folks in these areas, Bowling Green even, we've got a lot of tornado anxiety. So we want to make sure you're prepared. I want to make sure you're prepared. So please just make sure you have a plan. I know that a lot of times with weather, it seems like, there's not much I can do. There's a lot you can do to keep yourself safe. If you're in a mobile home, it's not safe. If you're in that hatched area, you need to go to either a public storm shelter, or if your friend or family member has a sturdy home, go spend the afternoon and evening with them, and even into the overnight. Now, eastern Iowa into, kind of the Peoria area, you had a 45% chance of damaging winds within 25 miles of your area. It's going to be a heck of a windstorm in addition to that threat for long track violent tornadoes. So you can't sit On the winds, very damaging winds are possible anywhere from Des Moines, all the way through Bowling Green, Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock. If you're in this red, if you're in the hatched area, basically everyone needs to be watching out for the winds. If there's a tornado threat in your area, there's also a very large wind threat and a hail threat too, especially around, in the areas where we're likely to see the development of supercells. Supercells are often prolific hail producers in addition to being prolific tornado producers. And supercells are different because they're storms that are kind of out on their own and they just spin. And they can be incredibly powerful and incredibly long-lived. And that's what we're watching out for today, in addition to a line of storms that's going to do a lot of damage. So we could see some big hail in Little Rock, Des Moines, Peoria, all these folks. If you're under this, you need to look at this risk right now and just get a closer look and just consider, hey, I have a garage. I'm going to put my car in there. If you don't have a garage, you can put, yoga mats on your, I've heard people putting yoga mats on their windshield and that helps. Covered parking is the best option. And I know that not everyone has it, but it can be really helpful. The other thing too, I briefly want to talk about is these storms do bring a flash flooding risk. And this stretches from, Arkansas, basically from the Mississippi Valley, even up into Kentucky. And just keep that in mind as well. These aren't going to be, humongous rainfall producers, but, rainfall rates 1 to 2 inches per hour can lead to flash flooding. So it's not going to be a river flooding situation, but it could be street flooding and, quickly rising creeks and streams are going to be a potential issue. Let's talk about the timing. So this is noon today, and you start to see storms already underway in Missouri and Arkansas, the southeast corner there of Texas, and you see this low pressure really winding up. And yeah, it's snowy as heck on the cold side of this. I know I haven't spent a lot of time talking about that, but that's a concern too. And then you start to see these storms developing around the Midwest, eastern Iowa into Illinois. This area right here is going to have some supercells, and you can see these storms kind of forming out alone ahead of it. They're going to be able to tap into all of that energy, and that is a big concern for today. And that's probably where you're going to see a lot of storm chasers as well. And then you start to see sort of storms developing as well further south, and then it all kind of congeals into this powerful line, and that's going to be a really big wind threat, but you'll likely see some tornadoes embedded in that as well. And then the threat pushes east as we head into Saturday. So you'll see some storms, actually a severe weather threat Saturday, kind of in the interior northeast, and then Saturday afternoon along the coastline there on the East Coast. So that's what we're looking at right now. I'm going to get a closer look right now at the Ohio Valley, because this really allows you to see what's going on later today. So, I mentioned sort of this eastern Iowa into Illinois. You start to see those supercells developing this afternoon. And, some big folks, some big cities, Chicago, St. Louis, Nashville, there's a lot of big metropolitan areas that are under the risk of severe weather today. So you see these, sort of storms kind of off by themselves. That's very dangerous, and that's likely when you could see those long track tornadoes, but you can still see tornadoes when these kind of congeal into that line as well, embedded vortices basically. So, the tornado threat's there throughout the entire time, but as the night goes on, this is around 8 o'clock, and you start to see these storms kind of forming into a line more so, that's when you see more of a wind threat with these. The wind threat's still going to be a very big concern, as is the tornado threat as this line pushes to the east. But as we head overnight into Saturday morning, the severe weather threat's still there, but it starts to lessen as we head into Saturday, because these storms are going to kind of just start to lose their oomph a little bit, their energy. However, still going to be a big deal, and it's going to be a huge deal this afternoon and evening. And I kind of wind this back to like 4 or 5 o'clock. You really start to see this, I would say, after 2 p.m. 2 p.m. onward, you're going to be watching for supercells, into the early evening, sort of in eastern Iowa, into Illinois, and then down into the south as well, Arkansas, into West Tennessee, around Memphis. This is around, this is 5 o'clock, and you're going to continue to see that action into the evening hours. In Nashville here, in our neck of the woods, we're kind of looking at, I would say, danger from about 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. And that's the same story up through the Ohio Valley. So, the areas that are likely to see long track violent tornadoes, it's going to be more afternoon into the early evening. And then that wind threat really blossoms into the overnight. Let's take a quick look at what is called the significant tornado parameter. And I like to show this because it really gives you an idea of the risk for strong long track tornadoes. Notice this is 2 o'clock and you're seeing this in Arkansas up through Missouri. And then you really start to see it coming to a head there in eastern Iowa into Illinois into the 5, 6, 7 o'clock hour. So once again, this is more of an afternoon evening threat that we're going to see for those supercell tornadoes, but you can still see embedded tornadoes as this line kind of pushes off to the east. And the tornado threat should start to lessen into the early morning hours, but it's still something you have to pay very close attention to. And you could still see tornadoes, especially further south in Mississippi, even Alabama. We're going to be watching for some tornadoes. So much going on. I know. Bottom line is you need to know where you are on this map on the Storm Prediction Center outlook. Basically, if you're in the red, you need to be extremely cautious. You need to have a plan right now. If you're in the orange, be very cautious. You need to have a plan right now. And same thing, even if you're in the yellow or green. But the red area right here, you have the highest risk for strong long track tornadoes and really gusty, damaging winds above 70 miles an hour. So a lot, I know. Just make sure you know where you're at. And then tomorrow morning, anywhere from Pittsburgh up through Rochester, New York, you folks are going to see possibly a few strong storms. And then along the East Coast in the afternoon, you're likely to see some strong storms. And very briefly, I want to mention how much snow folks are going to see. We got blizzard conditions in North Dakota, even into Minnesota. You could see up to a foot of snow with this, and that includes up through Wisconsin and even into the UP. You'll likely see some pretty good snowfall action. You folks are used to it, but it's going to be really tough to get around, with that snow and the wind kind of combined. So just use your common sense and your caution. I know it's, going to be April tomorrow, so you're probably like, oh my gosh, another snowstorm. But that is the case, and normally I would spend a lot more time on you folks, but this severe weather threat is just so massive, and there's so much to talk about with it, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows what to do. Now, let's take a look at next Tuesday. Yeah, we've got likely another outbreak on the way. I think this is going to be a busy spring. That's the way it's setting up so far, so just keep that in mind. And one last look right now at today's risk. That moderate risk stretches all the way from eastern Iowa all the way into eastern Arkansas, northwest Mississippi, and western Tennessee, western Kentucky. There's a lot of folks. Missouri, Boot Hill, you're included. Please be cautious today. So that's it for this forecast. Thank you for joining me. Please stay safe, and just remember, preparation is key on days like this, especially if you're in that moderate risk area. And you'll see me next week because I'll be talking about Tuesday. Bye, guys.